It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com. Search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts and download the California Report. It is my Substack. I post every single day of all the news stories up and down the state of California that matter. It is free. Go to randywangradio.substack.com. And with that, let's start the California Report in LA County, where this afternoon, the LA County Board of Supervisors has voted to put yet another sales tax increase on the June ballot. Not even waiting for November. This one would be for June. And they say they need this sales tax increase, a half-cent sales tax increase, pushing the county's tax rate up to 10.25% unless you have city taxes on top of that. And this would be true. If this passes, Lancaster and Palmdale, who passed their own tax hikes recently, would have the highest sales tax of any city in the nation. Not just in the county, not just in the state, in the country. No one would have a higher sales tax than Lancaster and Palmdale. Now, the Board of Supervisors say that they need this tax because of all of the federal cuts to health care and to Medicaid, known as Medi-Cal here, and that they need to make up these gaps because we're going to be losing a whole lot of grant funding to the Department of Health Services and the Department of Public Health. Yeah, Barbara Ferrer's department's getting defunded, and apparently we can't have that.
No, thank you.
We can't do any belt tightening in that department. We need to increase your taxes for, I guess, 5 years. But if this is because of who's currently in the White House and their cuts, that could change in 2 years. So here we go. Now, here's a couple of things you need to know. One, because the county is the one putting this on the ballot, the Prop 13 rules do apply. They need to get 67% support to get this tax hike across the finish line. If they do a citizens initiative where, let's say, the SEIU puts this on the ballot, the threshold is much lower. Although I wouldn't be surprised if this does not pass, and it might not. It's very possible. They'll probably pass it. But if they didn't, what'll happen is what's going on in San Diego, where they tried to put sales tax increases at the county and the city. They failed because of the 2/3 threshold. So now this time they're trying to go with a citizens initiative where the union puts it on the ballot. But of course, they need this because there are going to be so many cuts that they have to backfill. Although when you look at where this money is going to go, apparently a lot of it's going to go to a whole bunch of different nonprofits, which already raises an eyebrow. But 10% of all the money raised is going to the Department of Public Health. And while I happen to believe from experience that the person running that department is ill-equipped for anything and everything based on all of our coverage during the COVID days, I would argue the Department of Public Health has some legitimate uses, like giving out the letter grades for restaurants. And I guess if there really was an outbreak, well, we'd probably want someone more competent in charge. But here's my issue. And you tell me if I'm crazy. Before we go to the voters asking to raise taxes again in an already unaffordable place where there are more poor people in this county than anywhere else, shouldn't we look at, I don't know, a little belt tightening from the top, just as a show that you've got some skin in the game? You could start with the 5 members of the Board of Supervisors themselves. They each make about $300,000. Maybe they should go down to 2. Should they really be making $300,000? I have long advocated if you're in public service, you should make the people's salary. Your salary cannot be higher than the average median salary of the people you represent. Gives you a vested interest. And if that salary's too low, well, you should figure out how to improve the lives of your constituents. But here's what's interesting, because sure, you think about the Board of Supervisors, they're making $300,000. But do you know how many departments there are in the county and how many department heads are making an obscene amount of money? Now, the one that we have pointed out for years and years and years, and I have the current 2026 numbers from LA County's website. Barbara Ferrer, and this is before benefits and all the other fun stuff, the director of public health.
I have no idea.
She's making $581,000. And as we have pointed out many times on this radio station, she is not a doctor.
No, thank you.
But that's just one department. How about this? Do you know who Ricardo Garcia is? Why, he is the LA County public defender. Do you know how much the public defender, the head of the public defender's office makes? $466,000. And we have an alternate public defender, Erica Azarahi. She makes $438,000. I don't even think Hockman makes that. Okay, let's look. District Attorney. Hockman makes $430,000, and the public defender makes $466,000. So the elected district attorney of LA County makes less than the appointed head of the public defender's office. And that's just one of many departments. Guillermo Villaraigosa of probation, who's been a complete failure at every single level, he cashes in $393,000 a year. Nomer Garcia, the head of LA County Parks and Rec, $351,000 a year. Michael Govin, who runs the Museum of Art Department, $300,000. Dr. Lisa Wong of Department of Mental Health, $568,000. Wait, she makes less than Ferrer? The actual doctor of mental health makes less than Ferrer? The head of the library, $384,000. The head of the LA County Development Authority, $343,000. The head of Justice, Care, and Opportunities, which is the department that is supposed to depopulate the jails, well, the head of that department's making $381,000. I could go on and on and on. There is so much money being wasted in this county that, and you just look at the incredibly bloated salaries. How about the chief executive officer, Phasia Davenport? Before that $1 million lawsuit because Lindsay Horvath wrote a ballot measure to take away her job and make it elected, before that, she was making $630,000 a year. It's insane. You know what? Maybe I will put this list, if I can remember, on tomorrow's California Report, because when you see how much all these people are making, it makes sense how this county, with as much money as it brings in, is broke, because this is just the people at the very top. How much are all the bureaucrats under them making? And how much of all of this money they want to bring in with yet another sales tax increase is going to go towards anything but more bloated salaries for more bureaucrats? So that's what's going on there. On Fox 11, once again, Matthew Seedorf putting himself in harm's way went along Western Avenue, where yet another homeless encampment is also a prostitution encampment. It's not looking great, especially for if the voters would pay enough attention as to where these districts are and to who is running these districts. Hugo Soto Martinez has been a disaster. Now, let's go to the fires. NBCLA has an interesting piece, and I've covered a little bit of this recently. While you hear it just top level, it sounds great. SoCal Edison, because of the destructive fires that they most likely caused, are going to be undergrounding the power lines in Altadena. That's great. Now that we're in practice, what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you what it means. It means, for one, they are sending bills to homeowners when they need to drill under their houses to put these power lines in. I don't know how that makes sense. There are people who can't go back into their homes that are now getting billed for undergrounding of power lines. And the way that SoCal Edison has decided to dig these trenches and all these tunnels, it is currently, they have a plan to do a lot of damage to a lot of the oak trees that are standing in those neighborhoods. And so residents are a little irritated about that. Now, I'm sure you've heard a little about this lawsuit that's going on in Los Angeles. NBC LA and our buddy Royal have a good piece on it. A former child, because I think they're in their 20s now, is suing all the social media companies, although I think Snapchat and TikTok settled already. So they're suing mostly Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, and YouTube, which their owner is Google, because they say their products are harmful and addictive to kids. Jury selection has went underway, but now this trial has begun, and the plaintiffs say they've got evidence that they knew this stuff was addictive. They knew it was bad for kids, but I mean, ultimately, is that a parental responsibility thing? We're all addicted to this stuff. I mean, it's harmful to everybody, but this is also the way life is now. So we'll see how that goes. We told you yesterday that Nithya Raman is running for LA mayor. It's still weird. We're still not totally sure why, especially when she doesn't have one policy difference from Karen Bass. She just thinks she can win. Well, she sat down for an interview. It is 27 minutes long with Conan Nolan of NBC4. I have it on the California Report. And I highly recommend, if you've got the time, you should watch the entire thing. Because she very well could likely be our mayor. And she had horrible answers for every single question. She was either being incredibly evasive or incredibly disingenuous, or just did not have a concrete answer as to what the difference is between her and Karen Bass. So highly recommend you give that a view. Conan Nolan is one of the best we have in Southern California, and he does a great job. Now, in the Bay Area, it's still Super Bowl hangover, so that's most of the stories going on up there. But the strike is still continuing at SFUSD, and it's in day 2 now, and it doesn't look like it is anywhere closer to a resolution. In Sacramento, and we're going to spend some time on this story later, there is a new bipartisan piece of legislation that is going to piss off Gavin Newsom. So I'm already excited. What does it do? It would make it so every state department, every state agency can make their own plans for if their employees are going to return to work in office or not. This, of course, spits in the face of Gavin Newsom's return to work order that he put forth 2 years ago that the union said no. And one of the things that's interesting is the nonpartisan state legislative analyst has found out that if Gavin Newsom went through with his return to work order because of the lack of office space, because of all the other issues, it would actually cost the state another $200 million a year. And I'm a big advocate of remote work where it makes sense. And I think it makes a hell of a lot of sense in a lot of these bureaucratic government jobs. If you're not facing the public, if you're not facing the customer, why? We're just going to send more people to downtown Sacramento. You could turn all those buildings, and some of them are already getting bought by the universities, turn them into housing, turn them into mixed use, but turn them loose. If people don't want to go back to work and they're doing their job efficiently, I am in full support of that. And is that selfishly because I'd like to be broadcasting full-time from Santa Fe? Yes. Yes, it is. You know who was in Sacramento yesterday? Karen Bass. She is advocating for more wildfire support from the state. She spoke to the press who was up there, and she says that, and this is true, but I don't know what she can do about it, although I'd love to hear what her conversation was like with Ricardo Lara, that one of the biggest issues for the people who are in recovery in the Palisades and, of course, also Altadena is even if you got all the permits, you can't rebuild till insurance pays your claim. And we're seeing a hell of not that happening. Now, here's an interesting political story. Prop 50 has been upheld by the Supreme Court, which means that now is the filing time where who's going to run for these seats in all these new districts. Well, Kevin Kiley, who was actually the one leading the charge not only against Prop 50, but against all of this redistricting nationwide. Of course, Speaker Johnson never took his bill up because that guy's a coward. And we couldn't all just be adults about this and say, I didn't like what Texas did, and I didn't like what California's did. How hard was that? But no, we can't do that. So now Kevin Kiley has to figure out which district he's going to run in, and that might put him in a face-off with Tom McClintock because that might be the only safe district where a Republican is likely to win. There's a similar fight going down in Southern California where Ken Calvert out of Riverside is going to be running in the same seat against Young Kim in Orange County. All this is irritating. All of this is awful. We got a lot more coming up here on the California Report, so stick with us. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. I just put up on my Substack and my Twitter that list of all of the department head salaries in LA County, so you can check that out at Randy Wang Radio. In Sacramento, I found this story interesting coming out of CBS News Sacramento. The UC Davis equestrian team is suing UC Davis. Why? Because they feel defrauded, because you had a whole bunch of students that applied for that program. It's a very prestigious equestrian program that can lead to a whole bunch of different things, including going on to things like the Olympics or the Grand Prix or Thermal or the one in Florida that my wife watches on the TV. They're cutting their varsity program, and they did this after students had the ability to transfer to other schools. So they feel completely defrauded. And of course, the school knew that they were going to do this. And that completely upends people's lives when it comes to their path. If this is their career path, and if you didn't know, you can make a whole lot of money as a horseback rider. Of course, it also costs you a whole lot of money. And I don't know who asked for this regulation. Oh, except I do. It's the tribal casinos. Rob Bonta is going forward with his plan to ban blackjack-style games in card rooms like the Commerce Casino and the Bike. No longer will you be allowed to do that. Who is asking for this? Why, Rob Bonta's political benefactors. And of course, once again, we're asking about transparency concerns with the high-speed rail after they settled with a contractor for $537 million of your money because of a change order. Why? Sure didn't make any sense to me. And how much money we are spending. Maybe we spent so much money on vendors and then never bought any track, and now we have to figure out a different vendor. It's a mess. San Diego has a fun story because I like dining out, and I'm always excited to see when a city is expanding outdoor dining. La Mesa is looking to expand their sidewalk dining policies to open later and to have more patio seating, and I'm all about that. It's one of the few good things that came about COVID. Remote work, I liked it, except I didn't get to do it. But outdoor dining, like that, especially for the climate in Southern California. Come on. And you want to talk about waste, fraud, and abuse? ABC 30 Action News in the Central Valley has a great piece on the FBI and Fresno police looking into $1.5 million of taxpayer funds that were embezzled through something called the Fresno Arts Council. There is so much grant money that we never follow where it goes. And apparently, if you're connected, it is very easy to steal this money. So anytime we see somebody get caught, we got to elevate that. Upsetting stories today in the crime blotter, including a Hayward Little League that got burglarized. They stole their vintage popcorn machine. Seriously? And a nice little drug bust going on in San Diego where they busted a whole bunch of drug dealers, but they didn't want to bust the drug users, which, okay. Can we Prop 36 them, offer them treatment? In San Diego, they're actually funding that, unlike most other counties. And I thought this story was wild, and we covered it a little on the John Phillips Show today. But teens are breaking into homes that are for sale in San Diego County and throwing massive parties that include throwing people through walls, destroying smoke detectors, and launching fireworks inside homes. It is wild. It is crazy, and apparently because most of them are juveniles and kids, not many people are actually getting arrested for this. I'm still trying to figure out how they make money off of it because they're taking a home that's listed on Zillow, they're breaking into it, and then what are they doing? They're selling tickets to get in, like a bouncer fee for $10. It's so bizarre, but there you go. That's the California Report right there. You can get it at randywangradio.substack.com. And boy, do I have something nice for you. First time we've had a giveaway in a little bit. 790 KABC welcomes Noah Kahan, the Great Defied Tour at the Rose Bowl on August 15th. Tickets are on sale Thursday at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing. As I said at the top, the biggest story going on in LA County right now is the Board of Supervisors voting to put on this sales tax increase on the June ballot. We're going to be speaking to a candidate for LA County Supervisor. Tonia Arey will join us next. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-5222. 1-800-222-5222. Your emails at randywangradio@gmail.com. Search for the KABC News Blitz wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe to my Substack, The California Report. Get all the big stories going on in Southern California, Northern California, up and down the state in your inbox for free every day. randywangradio.substack.com. Our next guest is running for LA County Supervisor in the 3rd District. Up until a couple days ago, we weren't sure if she was actually going to be running against anybody, but now it's confirmed she will be running against Lindsay Horvath, who is seeking another term. Tonia Arey, welcome back to the News Blitz.
Hi, Randy. Thank you for having me.
Tonia...
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Well, let's go ahead and start off with the news that we found out last week, which was that after teasing everybody for weeks and weeks, Lindsay Horvath decided she's going to run again for this job instead of challenging Karen Bass for mayor.
Well, so she says, because she said a lot about the mayor, but she put out a clip on her social media to say that she was running again, and she used the same words as Bass. There's a lot more to do here. What more do you need to do to continue destroying the district and the rest of LA County? So she says that, but she's not officially filed her paperwork yet with the registrar's office. When I was down there yesterday, I mean, there were candidates, the place was packed. If she's that serious, why is she not there doing it on day one, is my question.
Maybe she thinks she's going to run for governor because you could still file for that job. Now, Tonia, let's talk about the big news that came out of the LA County Board of Supervisors today, and this was an idea brought forth by Holly Mitchell and Hilda Solis, but everyone except for Catherine Barger voted to put a half-cent sales tax ballot measure on the June ballot because of all the funding cuts that we're getting in the healthcare field from the federal government. What do you think?
Well, I think it's ridiculous because they can't even be trusted with the taxes that they collect now. And what you were saying earlier about, the salaries and everything, and what Barger said, it's like, okay, it's obvious there's a problem, but you can't keep raising money and taking money from others. This is going to push the working class further into despair. And it's not fair to the working class or to anybody when you're sitting on a throne making $240,000, $275,000, $300,000 a year. It's ridiculous. Where they should find the money, because the money is there, is stop spending it on the homeless. Because every other minute there's a homeless, facility that they want to open or put money into. Well, that's not working out now, is it?
Well, and in fact, LA County, thanks to Lindsay Horvath, just launched their new Department of Homelessness Services and Housing. And their new department head for that, Sarah Mahan, she's making $375,000. And the day that department opened, they had a budget presentation. And even though Measure A just passed, they're already broke and they already don't have enough money for all the things they want to do.
So here's it's not a perfect solution, but it will help and it will make sense because it was working. Up until 2019, when a person was arrested, a homeless person, they were arrested, they were placed in jail, and they were offered care. That care was in-house social services, and eventually they would get into transitional housing, get a job, and before you know it, well, with some time, they would be living on their own and they would have a job. Now, it wasn't perfect. Not everybody took the offer and went with it, but there was a lot less homeless on the streets. Well, in 2019, the Board of Supervisors said, no, let's turn that around. When they're arrested, let's offer them care, and then let's jail them. Well, what homeless person who's strung out on drugs is going to say, yes, make me better right now. They're not in the mindset. By 2021, in the entirety of LA County, homelessness went up by about 4.1%. And the entirety of LA County, it's approximately 10 million people. Well, do the math, because 5 years later, where are we at? I mean, it's ridiculous. And you also have to take into consideration COVID. But before 2019, yes, we did have a homeless problem, but it was not like it is today.
So I got to imagine you are not a supporter of the Care First, Jails Last initiative.
Oh, absolutely not. When I'm elected, one of the first things, there's many first things, but since that is such a hot ticket item, it's to author a bill saying, let's put back jail first and the care. And when I do get in, Barger is the only sane voice on that board. And I'm sure, I can't guarantee it, but I'm sure we can have a conversation and she'll second that, she'll second the ordinance and we can get something going because it was working. And this is what the board does. And usually it's led by, Horvath, is if there's something that's working perfectly, well, let's break it. And she has a track record of doing that. And I'm not making this up.
Well, speaking of something that Horvath did to, break a system, I don't know if you could say any of this was working, but, Horvath was the lead behind Measure G, changing the Board of Supervisors from 5 members to 9 members and turning the appointed CEO position, which, by the way, that person, Kezia Davenport, makes $630,000 a year, to an elected position. Well, apparently in doing that, Kezia Davenport was so upset that she sued the county for losing her appointed job, and they settled with her for millions of dollars, and now she's on some paid leave for nobody knows how long.
They gave her an NDA and $2 million, and they let the door slam on her back. And this Measure G, like you said, was initiated by Horvath. And as you said, it goes from 5 supervisors to 9. Well, what's that going to do? Where's that money coming from is what I want to know. Also, it creates the executive position, which is a role there's a lot more to it than just a supervisor. And if Davenport was making $650,000, how much do you think this executive role is going to cost? Right? It costs the taxpayers, right? And Horvath created this in mind that she was going to take that executive seat. So as I just said before, she's not filed with the registrar's office. And I was talking about this with a friend today. Maybe it's the case she'll step this one out, because then in 2028, when the executive seat becomes available and it is a elected position, she'll go for that. Because if she does go for supervisor, if she does win, what is she going to do? Bail on her constituents? It wouldn't surprise me if that happened, because, pretty much since the fall, she was toying at running for mayor and not paying attention about her constituents. And this clearly says she does not value or put priority on constituents in the county. It's all about personal gain.
We're speaking with Tonia Arey. She is running for LA County Supervisor against Lindsay Horvath. If you want to check out her website, you can do so. It's Tonia, Tonia, Arey, Arey, the number 4, supervisor.com. Now, as I was discussing earlier in the show, when we're discussing this sales tax increase, I happened to come upon the official list revised this year of all the department head salaries in LA County. And the list is quite shocking. The average salary of someone who lives and works in LA County is between $89,000 to $90,000 a year. But we have department heads that are making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 a year for jobs that you don't even know what exactly it is they do. What does the Justice, Care, and Opportunities Department do besides figure out ways to depopulate the jails? Well, that person's making $381,000. And then, of course, the name that we have been bringing up for 6 years on this radio station, Barbara Ferrer, who is not a medical doctor of the Department of Public Health, which, by the way, on the official website, they list her as Dr. Barbara Ferrer, even though she is not a doctor. She has a salary before benefits of $581,000. Is it time to reevaluate these bloated salaries for so many different positions within the county? Because these are all appointed positions.
Absolutely. Not only that, you need to show accountability. Because like you said, it's like, I don't know what these people do. If you can see how your money is being spent, and I'm not justifying, the $300,000 to $600,000, you need to see how the money is being spent, and the person receiving that type of salary, they need to have boots on the ground. They need to be in front of the people. They should have to create an itemized list, basically like an invoice of what they've done and what they've accomplished, because it's unfair to a taxpayer to give somebody money who didn't even earn that seat. It was given to them. So even if they do create, let's just go with that invoice, yeah, the salaries are a bit bloated. I mean, the governor doesn't even make, that much money. I believe he makes $250, same as the president of the United States. So how is somebody making $600,000 when, honestly, I don't even know the names you just said right now, because they're not present in what I see or read on a daily basis. It's ridiculous.
Tonia Arey is running for LA County Supervisor. I'm going to give you 60 seconds. Make your pitch to the voters. Why should they support you in June?
Because I'm not a politician. Horvath pissed off the wrong constituent. I'm doing this people over politics. I'm doing it for everybody who has been suffering for as long as they have been suffering. It's about us. It should be about us. Everything is us. It's not me. It's not I. It's all of us. And it's dark outside. I have to walk my dog soon, and I'm kind of scared to go walk my dog, and I should not have to feel that way. Nobody should feel that way.
Tonia Arey for Supervisor.com. That's Tonia Arey for Supervisor.com. Tonia Arey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Randy. Nice speaking with you.
It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. If you'd like to email us, you could do so at randywangradio@gmail.com. Ed writes in, hey, Randy, I want to remind you that on top of their salaries, you need to figure out that the benefits cost 55% of their salary. Okay, well, let's do a little math here. Let me pull out my trusty calculator. Barbara Ferrer, 581,000 times 0.55 is 319,550 plus 581,000. All right, so we're paying about $900,000 a year for Barbara Ferrer.
The evidence is crystal clear on that.
Love your show and your subset that provides us with much needed information. Well, thank you, Ed, for that nugget. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. For 2 years now, Gavin Newsom has been making all kinds of proclamations that he was going to get all state employees back to in-person work in Sacramento 4 days a week. He even signed an executive order, and it was supposed to take effect in July of 2025. And then the union said no. And they said, how about July 2026? And what do you know? When we get to July 2026, they'll most likely say, how about never? Well, now you actually have a bipartisan effort in the legislature to do away with that whole idea, have departments decide for themselves if employees need to go back to work in person or not, because apparently forcing everyone to go back to Sacramento in person 4 days a week would actually cost the state another $200 million. For more on this, we got a Fox 40 in Sacramento.
A new state assembly bill could allow state workers to continue working remotely, even as Governor Newsom's return to office mandate is set to take effect this summer. Fox 40's Noah Anderson joining us live in the studio tonight with what this proposed legislation, Noah, would really do.
Yeah, that's right, Eric. AB 1729 was introduced on Thursday, authored by Assemblymember Alex Lee of San Jose and co-authored by local Assemblymember Josh Hoover, who represents parts of Sacramento County.
Look at this. Both Democrats and Republicans in the legislature teaming up to stick it to Gavin.
Supporters say it preserves flexibility for remote work where it makes sense. Today, I spoke with the members of the group No to RTO, along with Assemblymember Hoover, about why they believe this bill is necessary as Governor Newsom continues to push for state workers to return to the office 4 days a week.
It is a waste of taxpayer dollars.
July 1st is the deadline for state workers to return to the office at least 4 days a week, an extension of 12 months from the original July 1st, 2025 deadline. But
You think by July of this year, Gavin's going to be even paying attention to this? They're not coming back. And nor should they need to. There's less traffic. The traffic still isn't great up there, but there's less traffic on the roads. Do you know, if we just figured out a system where for the jobs it makes sense, and there's plenty of jobs where it doesn't make sense, obviously, your plumbers, your gardeners, what have you, there's lots of jobs where you have to be around in person. But for all the office jobs, even if we took 20% of the workforce 1 day a week and rotated it, if you took 20% of the cars off the freeway, the 405 would move. We could incentivize that. We could organize around that. But you ever notice how even though we're in a mayor's race right now, nobody ever talks about solving traffic? They don't even think about it.
But many state workers say remote work is the better option.
Annually, we would be looking at potentially saving $225 million as part of the California budget.
Especially right now, considering the billions of dollars of deficit that we are in with our state budget this year.
I mean, sure, say that this is about the state budget, but really it's because you don't want to leave the house. And I understand. I get to do this show from home, and I love it.
State workers
noon to 3, I have to be in Culver City, and I don't love it.
State workers also point to environmental benefits on top of significant budget savings.
It reduces traffic congestion and air pollution when we stay home, because there is such a vast amount of state workers that have to commute.
Those arguments.
And by the way, I think this should be true for government employees in the city and the county of Los Angeles. If you're just a pencil pusher, you don't need to be taking up that space. I think we should have everyone at LA City Hall work from home permanently, and then we can turn LA City Hall into a giant homeless shelter. It already smells like one.
Those arguments helped drive the introduction of AB 1729, authored by Assemblymember Alex Lee of San Jose and co-authored by Josh Hoover of District 7, which includes parts of Sacramento County.
Embracing remote work where it makes sense for state workers is good for taxpayers. It's obviously good for workers, and it's also good for commuters.
And for as much as we talk about we have a lack of space and a lack of places to build things, there are so many buildings in Sacramento that you could turn into mixed use. You could turn into residential, and that's true for how many county and city-owned buildings are we wasting space with when we talk about tearing down a single-family home? How about we tear down a government building?
Under the bill, every state agency would be required to develop and implement a telework plan with a review every 10 years. State agencies also have to provide a written justification when a position is required to be performed in person.
Now, I can see why they're doing it as the state. I'm going to tell you right now, no matter who is running LA, nobody's ever going to implement an incentive to telework for a very simple reason. There is a certain portion of the population, myself included, if I did not need to be here, if I could work from anywhere, I would seriously consider moving to New Mexico. Not even kidding. Thank you all so much for listening and checking out that Substack, randywangradio.substack.com.